He didn't just lose a brother, he lost a future, a partner, a confidant, a co-pilot in a life neither of them had chosen, but both were born into. Prince William always knew he would carry the crown, but he never expected to carry it alone. Their bond wasn't forged by privilege, it was forged by pain. Two boys, stripped of their mother too soon, forced to walk behind her coffin in front of a mourning world. They didn't grieve privately. They grieved in front of cameras, under scrutiny, within palace walls that echoed with both duty and silence. That shared trauma wasn't just a memory, it was a bond, a lifeline. And for years, it kept them close. William, the elder, bore the pressure of the future. He was raised not just to serve, but to reign. Every step rehearsed, every smile calibrated. The world expected poise, discipline, and control. And William gave them that. He learned the rules, followed them, embodied them. Harry, on the other hand, was given the space to be different, but never the tools to make sense of it. He was the spare, a term that haunted him more than it ever helped him. He was allowed to be cheeky, emotional, free-spirited, but with freedom came frustration, and eventually, resentment. Enter Meghan Markle. To the world, she was a breath of fresh air. Beautiful, articulate, self-made. She wasn't molded by the palace, she had her own mold, and she brought it with her. Harry didn't just fall for Meghan. He fell fast, hard, completely. And that intensity worried William. It wasn't her background, not her nationality, not her career. It was the pace, the speed at which Harry was willing to reshape his life for her. William tried to talk to him, not as a prince, but as a brother. He urged caution, patience, reflection. "Slow down," he said. "Get to know her first." But to Harry, those words felt like walls, like judgment, like rejection. And so, a wedge formed. The relationship accelerated. Engagement, wedding, worldwide. Attention, the press couldn't get enough, but neither could Meghan. Or at least, that's how it appeared to those watching closely. She was dazzling, unapologetic, and she wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo. That challenge, however, came at a cost. Behind the glamour were growing tensions, staff complaints, protocol disputes, whispers in the palace halls. Meghan, some said, was difficult, demanding. Others called her refreshing, bold. But one thing was certain. She didn't blend in. She stood out. And the royal family wasn't built for that. William watched as the storm gathered. He stayed silent, as duty required, but inside he worried. Not just about Meghan, but about Harry, about what he was sacrificing, about what he was becoming. And then came the turning point, Megxit. The announcement hit like a thunderclap. Harry and Meghan were stepping back. They wanted out of duties, out of protocols, out of the public eye, or so they said. But the way they did it, it felt like betrayal. No private family discussion, no warning, just a public statement and a press explosion. The Queen was blindsided, Charles disappointed, but William, he was heartbroken, not just for the crown, but for his brother, for what had been lost: trust, communication, respect. And still, William stayed silent. Harry and Meghan left, and almost immediately they began their next chapter, in America, free from palace constraints, but still very much in the public eye. Oprah, Netflix, Spotify, interviews that didn't just tell their story, they rewrote history, accusations flew, racism, isolation, mental health neglect. They spoke their truth, but in doing so, they silenced others. The royal family, bound by tradition, couldn't respond. And so, William endured it. Each headline a fresh wound, each soundbite a twist of the knife. Behind closed doors, William was livid, not just at the betrayal, but at the spectacle, at how Harry, once the most beloved royal, had turned his grief into content, at how Meghan, with her Hollywood polish, had packaged their pain into a brand. The monarchy moved on. Events resumed. Smiles were practiced, but the fracture remained. Harry, once so full of life, began to look hollow. He said he was protecting his family, but the chaos hadn't stopped. It had only changed forms, from tabloids to timelines, from protocol to publicity. William kept his distance. Not from anger, but from sorrow. He had tried, reached out, extended olive branches. But when every private gesture risked becoming public fodder, the silence felt safer. And Meghan, she thrived. Speeches, campaigns, trademark filings, but even empires built on empowerment began to crack. Former friends fell away, former staff spoke out. Public sentiment shifted. The victim narrative, once powerful, began to fatigue the public. Too many feuds, too many accusations, too much spotlight for someone who claimed to hate it. Still, Harry defended her. Still, he stood by her side, but friends whispered that he was different now. Cautious, guarded, like someone always performing, always convincing. And William, he rose. More appearances, more responsibility, more weight on his shoulders, but inside, a quiet ache remained. Not for the crown, not for duty, but for the brother he lost. A brother who wasn't dead, but gone all the same. And maybe, just maybe, not coming back. But here's the most painful truth. This wasn't just a rift in the royal family. It was a cultural earthquake, a generational divide that split not only two brothers, but the very idea of monarchy itself. Tradition versus reinvention, duty versus self-expression, dignity versus disclosure. Meghan and Harry didn't just leave, they exposed, they dismantled, they rebranded. The monarchy was no longer an untouchable institution. It was a narrative to be challenged, questioned, even mocked. And in some ways, the institution deserved it. For decades, it held tightly to outdated values, resisting change, ignoring warning signs. Meghan was a test, and they failed it. But does that excuse everything that followed? Because while Meghan found a global platform and Harry found a cause, what they left behind was scorched earth, a family torn in half, a brother left to pick up the pieces, and a nation forced to watch its symbols fracture in real time. William did what he always did. He endured. He smiled. He served. But behind the curated photo ops was a man grappling with loss, not the loss of a title, but the loss of trust. He never imagined a world where Harry wouldn't stand beside him at the coronation, where the children wouldn't grow up playing together in palace gardens, where the brothers who once dressed in matching uniforms and giggled at family dinners now lived on opposite sides of the ocean, with nothing left but silence between them. Harry, in his own way, seems to be drifting, not in location, but in identity. Once a prince, now a personality. Once a soldier, now a speaker. Once a brother, now a brand. And William watches, not with hate, but with heartbreak. Because no matter what titles they carry or what cameras follow, them, at the heart of it all, they were just two boys who lost their mother. And now, they've lost each other. And that's the true tragedy. Not the headlines, not the scandals, but the silence, the long, cold space between what was and what could have been. Because when a crown divides rather than unites, what is its true worth? Harry made a choice to walk away. But walking away doesn't mean you stop being part of the story. It just means others are left to carry the weight you dropped. William carries it. Every single day. In public, in private. He wears the suit, delivers the speech, shakes the hand. And through it all, he hopes. Not for forgiveness, but for understanding. Not for reconciliation, but for peace. Because in the end, beneath the gold and the pageantry, beneath the interviews and documentaries, this was always a story about family, about loyalty, about what it costs to love someone who has chosen a different road. And though the road ahead is long and uncertain, one truth remains. They were brothers. Once, and maybe in some quieter future, they will be again. What do you think? Can a bond like this ever be rebuilt? Or have too many words, too many wounds, made the silence permanent? Let us know in the comments. If this story moved you, hit like, share it with someone who remembers the brothers they used to be, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that go beyond the headlines. Because sometimes, the truth lives between the lines.